Why do young architects keep complaining that the client does not want to pay?
It took me 15 years to be comfortable in asking for money from people. The profession has trained you in doing architecture. It's not trained you into being a good businessman. You have to learn that. And you have to learn that in a way that it goes tandem and parallel with your architectural abilities. The person to go to for a failure of a building would be an architect. The person to go to when Chandni Chowk redevelopment fails would be the architect.
Yes.
The person to applaud when something good happens in a building would be the architect.
It all comes down to
Have an ego based on taking the responsibility of the product. कल को मैं वहाँ पे तख्ती तो लगवा नहीं सकता कि यहाँ पे ये गलत इसलिए हुआ क्योंकि श्री मूलचंद जी ने कहा कि ग्लास की जगह यहाँ पे आप ये लगा दें एंड आई कांट डू दैट और आई कैन नॉट कीप ब्लेमिंग कि ओ ये तो ना कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को उसने पैसे नहीं दिए इसलिए ऐसा हो गया. I take the onus of the good, of the bad, of the honor, of the dishonor, of everything of the building. And therefore, I have to take decisions in the interest of everybody. Other people are able to decide it because the architect himself has become, well, weakened, not strong enough to be the leader. This is a profession which requires leaders all the times. It cannot do without leaders.
Hi everyone, welcome to Insyd Converse. I am architect Saumya Bansal, founder of Insyd. Today I have architect Sudhir Khandelwal with me. He is a professor, he is a practicing architect. He teaches currently at MET. He used to teach at SPA Delhi. His firm is called SKA. They are based out of Noida. With the varied experience that Sudhir brings on the table, we are happy to discuss academics and the state of practice of architecture in India. So, without taking much more time, hi Sudhir, how are you doing?
Morning. Hi. Thank you. Thank you. And may I introduce you as a colleague in architecture, presently doing some wonderful things as a young architect. And I'm happy to note with my little brief conversation I had with you before this, that there are young architects taking the profession of architecture in its seriousness and concerned about it. Right. So, yeah, good to see you, Saumya.
Okay, I'll start from the segment one, which is all around academics. I would want to know from you, what does an architecture student today wants and how has it changed in the last 30 years?
How has the scenario of architecture changed? First of all, I'm not a real teacher because I teach, I practice. Well, that's two at least facets of architecture that I do. And I'm truthful to both of them and to none of them, which means a variety of things. For instance, like I don't have the luxury of what a full-time teacher has of spending time with students as much as they'd like to, etc. And the same goes for my practice, where they're always cribbing as to why I'm not in office. The question is, how has architecture, the need of a student changed in 30 years? None, in my opinion. None in the sense that I think every architecture student coming out of an architecture college still yearns to make buildings which have a purpose. I mean, I now teach bachelors. Currently, I'm taking the thesis studio. I get to see young students all the time. For whatever fellow faculty or fellow architects may crib about the younger people, I find them much smarter. Variety of their learning of life, the understanding of life. I sometimes ask fellow academicians to not judge them from our turf, which is what we are good at. We have 30, 35 years of, for people like me, of architecture with us. Now, if I put myself, and which I very often do, when talking to students or when being with students or when we being in a class, I judge themselves from thinking about where I used to be 35 years before.
Yeah.
Students are pretty good. There's nothing wrong with them. Their yearning, their passion for what they want to do is, if not better, certainly not lesser. One. What's changed? Changed is their expectations from what the profession can give them early. But that's a cliche actually, because men, depending on how well you get to interact with the students, the young people, they're not, I mean, by the time they're graduating, they're men or women. I think this yearning for the profession giving you a comfortable life is also not a new one. It's just that it's now become more comparable to what their fellow friends can make out of the professions, what the money that they can get, the comforts of life, etc. Many of them, given a suitable direction, understand that that's not necessary. The necessity for earning money too early, getting comforts too early, is not priority once you get the right direction of where you stand in the larger field of architecture.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you, if you can understand your role as the interning person, as a learning period, if you can understand that the profession is going to provide you,
Yeah.
so in that much way, no, they haven't changed. They haven't changed much. Now,
Right.
if you are trying to talk about individual way in which younger architects are changing, well, as I said, they're smarter. They certainly have a skill set which comprises of many, many more things than people of my generation or my times when graduating had. See, a pencil is also a tool, and so is a SketchUp, and so is anything else. Now, a tool is only as well versant as the person who holds it.
Right.
I think if we keep cribbing about the fact that people do not use the pencil as well as that's okay. I mean, not everybody was using the pencil very well 30 years back also.
Right.
A pencil does help. I don't think, I think it's kind of overrating it to believe that it's just a tool. Generate visuals and volumes, and which are fantastic here. Now, that's where my scare is, that they don't understand what they're generating. So they have huge computing powers, tools in their hands. So maybe as academicians and teachers and practitioners, we have to learn how to handle these tools. There are things which bother me about younger people, passion for one of them, heroism, the other one that I keep talking about. But I don't know if it's only about architects. I think it's about society as a general rule, where passion and heroism are both lacking in the youth. So I wouldn't say that that's particularly true only about architecture. But yeah.
I think that's because of the comfortable lifestyle that the previous generation has given us.
Yeah.
I think heroism also comes from the need to be a hero, right? I mean, if you already have a comfortable lifestyle, you don't have to fight for anything. That's one of the reasons we don't see that these days.
I agree totally with you. I think heroism being dying is basically because of, like, is overabundance of security, safety, and the comfort. Yeah, but the society is kind of overproduced. That's a societal problem. But frankly speaking, I don't bother about the societal problem. I'm only bothered about architectural problem. That's my
Yeah.
field. That's what I've worked for. That's my only area of concern. Now,
Yeah.
you're right. As I talk to you, I get this clue that I keep cribbing about heroism and passion not being there in young architects. And so there has to be a reason for it. I think it's also a lack of heroes.
Lack of heroes.
Heroes.
Okay.
Heroism is derived in mythology, unless there is Apollo. You
Yeah.
have to have heroes to develop heroism. I think in architecture, if you remember the time, I'm sure you remember reading about the time about Corbusier or about Mies van
Yes.
der Rohe or about Frank Lloyd Wright. There were heroes, people you could emulate, wanted to be.
Right.
There was a Charles Correa I wanted to be when I was younger. Yeah.
Every architect dreams to be one of these star architects.
And I think that's not a wrong thing. That's one way of uh, uh, having heroism in you, wanting to be like something or maybe someone. And then there is the which comes when you become someone to other ones. So there's a lot of lack of probably the school education system not creating heroes or not acquainting the young ones with heroes. I get to see students only at the little passing out time or at a postgraduate class. And sometimes I realize, why are they like this? And I blame the school system fairly and squarely. Why do they not believe that they must do this?
Huh.
or they can do this. The school system, and I'm obviously not talking about the college where I teach because, I only can talk good about things there or SPA for that matter. It's become the education system of architecture has become very need based. It's become, um, it's become like a service task. It's producing people who can perform the roles of a service provider. It's very benign. It itself is not aggressive. It doesn't give dreams to the students.
And why is it? I mean, what could be the reasons of the system not giving dreams to these people? Because I can totally relate with you. I mean, we studied for the sake of studying, at least in bachelor's.
Yeah, I got what you mean. Schools had become, well, that's a larger problem with the education system. They've become for profit, not necessarily SPA, but the government has given up. The environment of education has long been gone. Before I blame the school system, I'll blame the lack of teachers. Teaching became a service itself. It's become a job. I've been fairly blessed to have come across people who were teachers who were not like that. And that impact is something which I believe has helped me. I don't know about you, but I know about many younger people who are totally lacking initiation into the heroism of architecture.
You said teachers could be one of the reasons, right? I recently met practicing architect in Bangalore, and he teaches as a visiting faculty in one of the like premium colleges here. So he said most of the teachers become teachers because they see themselves as failures because they were not able to make it in the practice of architecture. And that's why they delve into teaching. So, if that is where everything starts from, the same trauma will trigger into the students. How will they become heroes if every day they are getting scolded for no other reason?
Yeah. So I guess we are saying the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how to change that. That's a rather larger problem of, it's probably true for other professions also, but it doesn't hold true in IT and all where you're imparting only a skill set. Yeah. You're imparting um, uh, unquantifiable skill sets like we do in architecture.
Exactly. Yes.
Um, into the relationship between them has to be managed, maintained, and exist. It cannot be left to a curriculum.
Hmm. Yeah.
Secondly, this making money business for private institutes, that's always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, it's not as if you require 100% group of teachers to be the same. You just,
Need
for
a
instance,
handful of passionate teachers.
handful for passionate teachers in a class that I don't need all the 100% of my students to be, conceptualizers. I need them a big variety. If I
Yeah.
have 10%, I'm very happy. If I can five more into that list, I made my class.
Yeah.
Other ones should be useful to the profession.
Right.
Goes for the architectural teaching faculty. We don't have to have 100% of people who are only motivators, but well, we need some of them. And so some is becoming lesser. Here's the anecdote. Somebody asked me to teach at the university, can't name them. Join them. I said, I can take a year sabbatical if you want me to really come and be there. And I said, you should give me money worth my time, which should be like something like 15 lakh rupees a month here. And why else would I leave my practice and kind of be with you here? Their paying standards were like, all right, you can take my black and white picture and post it on the wall. Yeah. You pay so, yeah, you pay peanuts, you get
Difference of
monkeys.
that. Yes, that's another reason. I don't remember who I was talking to, but the salary ranges for faculties are even worse in most cases than fresher architects.
Many a times when they crib about money, I tell them that no, cribbing about money is no good. You have to figure it out. And it's
Yeah.
not rocket science. You can always make a good living and do good work.
All right. So the industry blames the students for not being skilled enough. The academia blames the council for being too bureaucratic and outdated. The student is the one losing at the end. How can we truly help students?
That was not on record when we talked about defunct architectural bodies, institutes.
No.
So let me put on record in saying that I really believe that do not expect help from any council or institute without naming them.
Yeah.
Now, so what is the problem? Because first of all, I don't see a problem with the students. Somebody knows the ABCDs lesser, somebody knows it more. And as I said, ABCD आज नहीं सीखोगे तो कल सीख जाओगे. Big deal है. As long as I give them with the motivation, stick around in architecture for the next 5 years, I know they will learn it. They'll learn whatever the school system has not been able to do to them. In 5 years, they'll learn it. Not my problem. Now, so what's the other problem? The other problem is there's too much of fall off from architecture going to what I call USI, US, etc., etc. That is unfortunate because the schools which have not been able to tell them or to inculcate in them that stick around in architecture and you will do much better. And this particular field, direction that you're taking is going to get you into a wall in 5 years down the line. You'll be unemployed. Or I don't know what they'll do. I'm not bothered about them. The rate of attrition of younger people not joining architecture, that is a problem that can be easily tackled. The larger problem is of younger architects starting off their careers with the wish to attain a level of their proficiency in architecture and then taking architecture beyond that. To me, that's the problem. The architects who are who are graduating today, my only concern for them is can they reach their prime and then become the leaders of architecture for tomorrow? This is a profession which requires leaders all the times. It cannot do without leaders. Like I squarely blame the previous generation of before me who have got architecture into a state where salaries are so badly paid that younger people are taking that as a big constraint without naming, but I think it's common knowledge of architects of that time not being paying people stipends, making them overwork, not bothered about their immediate life.
Yeah.
So the question was that what can we do to change the situation? I have no problems with the younger ones coming out. I have no problems with their ability to grasp. They're probably able to theorize. That can also come in time. The ability of students to reach a position in the profession and then take it from there. That's the concern today. That concern you had an answer for. Let's change the value of architecture in society. Now, that's not going to be so. The first thing, as I said, do not base or depend on the institutes and the council for doing that because they are defunct. They are clubs. Like as all clubs they do, they're good for the members or the members who hold the positions of the club. For the larger architectural community, you and I know each other. In fact, like I said, who's in Bangalore? I know, but we know each other. We're a very small community. Barely an architect in this country who doesn't know me or I don't know him. So that club of architecture, if we improve the value of that to a position in the society where people understand what architecture is. Now, who are these people? I want these people to be journalists, media managers, politicians, bureaucrats, pillars of the society. They understand the value of architecture. Once that happens, accountability will come in. Because the person to go to for a failure of a building would be an architect. The person to go to when Chandni Chowk development fails would be the architect.
Yes.
The person to applaud when something good happens in a building would be the architect. Now, if architecture is so, in short, what I'm trying to say, Saumya, is that architecture should have a place in the public consciousness of the society and a bigger conscious public. And that's what we are lacking. And because of the lack, everything falls and then trickles down to the salary of the young person. Of course, it's compounded by the fact that there are individuals who believe in cheap labor. The force should be from up. Right now, tail is wagging the dog. I don't know whether I answered your question. It seems like a big task, especially when there is no institute to foster it. But believe me, it's not a big job.
But then again, right?
I'm seeing a
Spreading.
change happening. I'm seeing the change happening in smaller places. I'm doing some work with Lucknow Development Authority. They've set up a special cell to be able to manage the entire construction processes of the authority. The young people there have so much say in what happens in the development authority. And today morning, I was having a chat with an architect friend. The state of affairs at Chandni Chowk redevelopment program, which road was converted into a footpath. The choice of the architect who could do not better than making a footpath out of the road.
Mhm.
You and I together, when we're talking about the redevelopment of the Chandni Chowk stretch,
Mhm.
it's all broken down. It's in a bad state of civic apathy.
It
Somebody,
happened
sorry,
4 years ago that it was
well, about
redeveloped.
5, 6 years back. How could the architect do this?
Hmm.
Again, I'm not trying to point towards an architect. I'm trying to point towards public consciousness that
Yes.
architecture, the profession is which is responsible for the goods and the bads. In fact, I was telling somebody in the morning that Hazratganj in Lucknow is a much better example. They left the road as a road. They did the sites, they did the buildings. Now, what the other design exercise did was to do the road and leaving the buildings. So, converted the road into a footpath, beautify the road, and the buildings are derelict and as they were. So, anyway, let me not get into a design discussion with you.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
would like to foster design discussions of architecture in the media. I think
Yeah.
my simple step that I think I foresee is the media taking architecture as a very, like they do paintings. Everybody knows about modern art, but this guy sold for that. They understand that. How much they understand is a different matter, but that's true about
Exactly.
art always.
Right.
But nobody claims to understand architecture. Nobody claims to explain architecture. So media should become aware that about the wholenessness of architecture. That's where I started with the roles of people like you come in. Insyd, while focusing on the young, should also focus on the larger values of the young, which means if you can help put architecture in a place where it generates position, the architects will certainly be helped.
Yes.
It's a reverse process.
Yeah.
The politician should know that if he thinks of a city development, he does not call the a ward councillor, he calls an architect, urbanist. That listen,
Yeah.
yaar, I want to do this here. Because that is the guy who's qualified. If the court wants to pass an order changing some part of the city design,
Mhm.
they should not call the solicitor general. They should call some architect to figure out what it means here. What your demolition order will mean to the society at large or to the city at large. So there's a drift here. It's possible.
Yeah.
May I take a minute? If you have noticed this, I call it recent syndrome, but it's about a decade old now, where every architect, you and I included, is talking to another architect. There are these conferences held, national conferences,
I mean,
and everybody wants to look very important standing on
yeah.
a stage. Unfortunately, the other people whom they're talking to are the same people as you.
Yeah.
The profession runs is that most architects want exactly what the other person does. I mean, the shades of differences of maturity can come in. So we keep telling each other what we already know.
Yes, exactly. We don't lose that jargon and we don't think about how can we communicate better to the people outside of the industry. All the conferences, everything, they have the same concept. Architects speaking with other architects. And most of the time, architects sitting in the audience, they are so jealous of the work that the other architect has
But
done.
that's a human emotion. I won't bother about that.
I
But the
mean,
thing is that it has no impact. It has no value. If you tell me something, and I tell you something which I know, how is it? So the reason I
exactly.
am
How is
on
it
podcast
valuable?
today is I hope that it reaches non-architects
Yes, yes.
because you and I are discussing the same thing.
Correct, correct.
So I think if you find a venue where I've had this problems, in many institutes which I am a part of, which I have to go to. Sir, we are having this, let's say, a conference. Why don't we call this person? No, no, let's call the SDM or the vice chancellor. Because the vice chancellor getting to know what we are doing as a urban society is more important than each of us to know what we are doing. Because we already know.
Exactly. Yes.
But somehow we don't go outside our jacket here. And if we go outside a jacket, it's very timid. Very timid.
I think one thing that I like about urban design as a field in architecture is that every design discussion, it starts with the common public, because most of the time you are building for the common man. And I have seen my friends in urban design going and talking to the general public. That interface can help spread, of course, awareness about architecture and also what architect does.
I agree with you and I disagree with you. Well, agree with you in the sense, yes, I think that, see, for a society to be a participant to a change, a society should be informed. People in New York are, let's say, example I can think of, towards a building, they can have a building torn down if they think that it's kind of hurting the aesthetics of the city or the street. They inform people. Unfortunately, information lies in sensibilities which are either more about ourselves, which are beneficial to ourselves, or with cars and Porsche and Louis Vuitton bags, product designs. I don't think architecture is in the mind and it doesn't have the mind space of people.
I'm saying ki listen, take their opinions and screen the opinions which are important. But I'm saying that creating awareness starts from the industry.
I think it starts from the designer, the architect or the urban designer or the landscape designer. You have to be in that position to be able to absorb what you've learned from the public. You should be having that larger vision. Public will only respond to the larger vision that you have, and you should be sensitive enough to change that vision, adapt that vision. Now, your adaptation will be based on the response of the public and the public's awareness of your sphere. And that's again when I come down to architecture should take social space. There is a foreground, there is a background, there is a building, there is a road, there is beautification, there is adaptation, there is sustained red sandstone appropriateness, but it can't be done in front of red fort because the red fort is red sandstone also. So you lay it out in front of the red sandstone. One has to understand there are aesthetics, there are visuals. The public should know that. If you don't give public the words and the means to think, do not expect a response. Or if you get a response from them, because everybody, you see that in conferences also, people react from their position of knowledge.
Yeah.
Even in the class, a faculty will respond according to the position of their strength. So you might find a faculty look at space, mass, volume in a design, and somebody will start looking at a toilet ka darwaza is not opening left. Drawing is the same. It's just that a particular person does not have the vitality or the mental ability to look at a larger. I'm not saying the door opening is not important, but that's a tertiary level of educate the public. As you go out into your foray, which I hope you do well in, your goals for public outreach, I think you should do what you're doing. Your noble purpose will be bettered if you reach it out to public. Let the people be aware that there are issues of concern here. Issues of concern which not only affect your past and present, it affects your future. A wrong paving on a wrong road is going to change the way you live. As soon as the public becomes aware of that, it's like I tell everybody, you want to solve the plumbing or the drainage problems of any town in anywhere, I mean, especially in North India, because drainage problems are huge here. Make the public aware that drainage is important. As soon as they become aware that drainage is important, they ask the MLA, the councillor, they start giving votes on the basis of clean drains. As soon as the councillor gets to know that he gets votes because of clean drains, he'll start getting the drains cleaned. He'll not waste his money making freedom fighters fountains. He'll start putting the money getting the drains cleaned.
That's true. But how many people would actually be concerned about clean drains? I mean, again, coming back to most of the rural population that we have in India. I'm talking about the Bharat and not the India. I'm talking about the people who are living on day to day, daily bread. They are the mass vote bank for politicians. And politicians are not concerned about you and me because they know we will not give them the votes.
So politicians are concerned about being voted.
the voter will come from the masses.
The voter, yeah. So we have to look at mass as a non-elitist mass, as in the colonial way, believing them to be not possible of holding a higher thought. People call builders as people who only want to make money. I found builders to be the smartest people. Their measure of making decisions could be money. Sometimes I tell my architectural community, why can't we think like builders, man? This guy will break this building like this, as you know, if he gets extra FAR or this or that, he'll compute very quickly about his benefits. And we would be wanting to readapt and read this thing and change this and adapt it. He'll say, "Tod do yaar, let's make it a new one." Yeah. They come up with ideas which architectural community does not. You can't have a jogging track here, have it on the roof here. You can't have this, have it on the pool. Now, what I'm the conversion of the example was that again, politicians. I found bureaucrats to be so smart. Sometimes in places where again I don't want to name, because if this podcast reaches your people I have in mind, they'll not like it. I mean, there is a IAS officer giving better ideas than 20 architectural representatives in the same room. I mean, he's the one who's saying, "Yeah, why does this every design look like 1960s? Why can't we have a thought which is to 2020?" So I think it's easier to change this when we're talking about bureaucrats and builders. But when we talk about masses, I don't think we have to believe that it's not possible. I think masses have come a long way. Education has gone higher. Our general level of erudition has changed. So, only thing that needs to now change is for us to believe that people want good things. Good things don't have to be televisions and mobile phones. Good things have to be clean air and
Better infrastructure,
yeah.
better roads.
And I sincerely believe that is true. One of the points that I was trying to make is that the reason that other people are able to decide is because the architect himself has become, well, weakened, not strong enough to be the leader. So let's get the role of leadership and believe that change can happen. Conversation, when I said journalism is one way of changing the mass consciousness of architecture, I think conversations are a very important part of that. When we
But
dialogue,
only between architects, between
no,
the public
obviously
and
not.
yes.
I've never sat on a panel. I've never sat on a stage. So maybe I'm just being jealous. But I never have the time or this thing to do it. I did try it once, but I realized I'm not cut for sitting and talking crap on a stage. Also to people who know I'm talking crap. Yeah, the conversation has to go
You
public.